Good morning. Today we're going to talk about paradigm shifts. That's how we kind of ended the conversation yesterday, and we're just going to get right on with it today. Today I continued, to not eat bread yesterday, and we're moving on to day 36 of the challenge. I actually made my wife take the Danish with her to work today because it was tempting me all day long. Like, it just sitting there bugging me, tempting me. And I knew that I needed to get it out of the house in order to not have to use up so much energy and willpower throughout the day to fight that. So speaking of getting it out of the house, like, we're talking about shifting perception, shifting the way that we do things. We tend to see, or at least think we see, things as they are. In reality, we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. For a long time, I actually wanted to hang a sign above my door. You know, there's a bold law and good quote that's in some books out there that says, change the way you look at things and the things you look at change. We've all heard that before, I hope. Change the way you look at things and the things you look at change. I wanted to put a sign leaving the house for all of my kids and my family to see, because I think we can all be world changers. I wanted to put up a sign that said, change how you see the world and change your world. We hear this often when we want to talk about like positivity versus negativity, right? Like, something bad can happen to you in your life, and depending on how you look at that bad, is the glass half empty or is it half full? Maybe we had a breakup with a good friend. You know, does that breakup better in the long run? You know, was it somebody that we needed to get out of our lives? You know, maybe we lost our job at work, and you know, how we perceive that can change our world. It doesn't mean that there aren't any facts. We looked at that picture yesterday. The picture was in black and white on a piece of paper. Everybody looking at the picture could not deny where the strokes were, where the absence of color was, where the black was. That picture looked like that picture on that piece of paper. However, depending on how we were primed to see that picture, changed our perception of the picture. You know, I've said this before in the business world and in business coaching. You know, if somebody says to me that they are a 4 out of 5 on reaching their business plan, like, I know what a 4 out of 5 is. In fact, I've made the mistake of saying, well, that's great. well, is it great? Like, maybe a 5 out of 5 is the only thing that's great to this person. Maybe 4 out of 5 is great for me. Like, I think that that's well on the way, especially in this year of COVID in 2020, well on the way to accomplishing the goal by the end of the year. But maybe 4 out of 5 is a disaster for them, or maybe 4 out of 5 is way out of range. So I have to dig in and ask more questions and find out more about what a 4 out of 5 looks like to them. Somebody says the word wealthy. Wealthy is different to everybody. If you grew up in a family where both parents were making $30,000 a year and you make $100,000, you could be wealthy. If you grow up in a family where both parents are making $250,000 and you make $100,000, you might not feel wealthy. Wealthy to you could be making $1 million in a year. So we all have perceptions on how we view our reality, and even facts and figures and numbers, despite the fact that they seem permanent and factual, the perception of those numbers could be different based on everybody. So a paradigm shift is when we gain insight, which allows our perception to change, to shift. So when we gain new insight and our perception changes, that is a paradigm shift. Interestingly enough, I just discovered this today, that Thomas Kuhn introduced the phrase paradigm shift in a book called The Structure of Scientific Revolution. And basically, he determined that nearly all scientific breakthroughs have happened because of a paradigm shift. That when the scientists stop looking at their old way of thinking and the old paradigm and consider new paradigms and new ways of thinking, that's when the breakthroughs happen. That's when we get an aha moment. Some of those aha moments are big and some are small. Just depends on how much of a shift that particular item has made for you. In The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey talks about a situation that happened on the subway once. I've heard this story before. I've read this book before, and I forgot that this story happened in this book. And in fact, I don't know if I ever remembered that it was in this book, but basically he tells a story about a man and his children getting onto the subway. Prior to him getting onto the subway had been rather quiet. It was a peaceful ride. And when this man and his children got on the subway was no longer quiet. The children were running around. They were being rambunctious. The man just sat in his seat, and in the seat, he leaned his head back and just closed his eyes. And meanwhile, the rest of the car is going crazy. The kids are throwing things. They're wrestling with each other. They're even grabbing things off of other people's seats and out of their hands and just acting like hooligans. So Stephen Covey felt the need to lean up towards the man and say, hey, I don't know if you've noticed, but kids are a little out of control. Do you think that you could do something to tone them down? And here I am thinking, oh, it's not even going to be his kids. They just walked on together, or something to that effect. And what transpires in the story is the man opens his eyes and he looks at him and he says, looks around and goes, wow, it looks like they are. I suppose I should say something to them about this. We were just coming from the hospital where my wife just died, and I'm kind of taking it all in and lost focus. My apologies. Let me say something to the kids. And Stephen Covey's like, whole perception just changed. Where basically he learned and found out that it wasn't just a father letting his kids go crazy. It was a man and his children who just lost their mom and his wife. And immediately he shifted to, what can I do to help? How can we help you? What happened? So I've had these moments in my life. Hopefully you can share some of yours in the comments. I know that when I was going through my first divorce and my wife, or my only divorce, my first marriage ending, and my first wife just said to me one day, hey, I'm moving back to Baltimore with or without you. And I left my job of 10 years because I wanted to work on attempting to save my marriage. And then when my sister died, I thought I had my whole life ahead of me. And in a blink of an eye, I realized that life is short and you can't save everybody. And things just changed dramatically. What I looked at as being important in my life, and the things in both of those situations that had encompassed me, fulfilled me, and the things that I was striving after, I realized that I don't have control. I can't decide everything. And I needed to take a deep look at my life and how I lived and what I do, and how many times I say I love you, and how I make sure that my family knows it. Things to that effect throughout my life, in order to change my life, how I look at my life, what I do in the world. So if you want to make minor changes in your life, you can focus on your behaviors, you can focus on your attitudes. And if you want to change major things, if you want to have those major moments, those paradigm shifts, those quantum changes in your life, you have to focus on those core principles, those basic paradigms that Stephen Covey's going to go into in this book. So again, share in the comments what major things have happened in your life, or at what points, what things happened that caused major paradigm shifts for you. It could be deep, it could be fun. I do appreciate you all coming in and joining me today. And tomorrow we're going to talk about more of that, your beliefs in you. Have a great one.